Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Gustav Jung. There are forces within you that were not consciously chosen, and yet they shape the way you think, feel, and act. They don't ask for permission. They don't wait until you're ready. They simply manifest, sometimes as a sudden emotion, other times as a decision that seems rational, but carries a deep symbolic weight. Have you ever wondered why so many myths and stories across different cultures repeat the same types of characters? The hero, the wise old man, the villain, the protective mother, the rebel. Even separated by continents, languages, and religions, humans seem to tell variations of the same inner drama. Carl Jung called this the collective unconscious. The collective unconscious is like an inherited mental system, a layer of the psyche that doesn't come from our personal history, but from the history of humanity. It's as if we are all born with an invisible alphabet within the soul, ready to form images, desires, nightmares, and aspirations even before we learn to speak. Just as you are born with a body that already knows how to breathe, you are also born with a mind that already knows how to dream in symbols. That's why people from different cultures create similar figures, even without ever meeting each other. These recurring images, which Jung called archetypes, are like psychological molds, invisible structures that organize our deepest thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. They are universal patterns that help us understand ourselves and others even without realizing it. Every human being is born original, but many die as copies. Carl Gustav Jung. Archetypes are universal mental patterns. They are not specific characters, but symbolic forms that have inhabited the human imagination for thousands of years. They live in stories, films, religions, fairy tales. But above all, they live in us. And many real-life figures have embodied these archetypes throughout history. Martin Luther King, for example, embodied the archetype of the peaceful hero, the one who risks his own life for a greater ideal. His speech, his presence, and his sacrifice activated in the collective an archetypal image of courage with compassion. Mother Teresa represented the archetype of the Great Mother, the figure who nurtures and protects even amid suffering. It wasn't just charity, it was a radical love that awakened tenderness even in non-believers. Steve Jobs was the visionary magician, the one who transforms the invisible into form. His creative mind, his ability to intuit the future and give subtle ideas a concrete shape, represents the archetype of the one who creates realities through words, images, and aesthetics. And even villains have archetypes. Hitler was a manifestation of the collective shadow, the destructive power of what is denied by culture. He didn't invent hatred. He embodied ancestral rage, gave shape to collective resentment, and activated the darkest impulses of the human psyche. These figures didn't choose to play archetypes, but their behaviors, decisions, and life paths awaken these patterns within us. And that's why we recognize them intuitively, because the archetypes live in us, waiting for images through which to express themselves. But the archetypes don't just live in history. They live in us. They don't only appear in dreams or myths, but also in traits of our own personality, in how we fall in love, in how we respond to a challenge, in how we sabotage something we deeply desire. Let's understand this logically. Every man carries within him a feminine dimension, made of sensitivity, imagination, intuition, receptivity. This is the anima. She is the part that feels, that opens to others, that dreams, that surrenders. When a man rejects these qualities out of fear of seeming weak or because they were culturally repressed, he tends to project them onto women. And then comes idealization, emotional dependence, or even contempt. He's not seeing the woman as she is, but as a reflection of the part of himself he hasn't yet recognized. Likewise, every woman carries within her a masculine principle of logic, structure, assertiveness, direction. This is the animus. It represents focus, firmness, the ability to say no, to act with clarity. If this force isn't integrated, it can appear as destructive inner criticism or difficulty trusting one's own actions. The poorly integrated animus leads the woman to fight with harsh inner voices that say, "You'll never be enough. You have to control everything." These two poles, masculine and feminine, live within all of us, and the process of psychological maturation involves integrating them, not repressing them. When we acknowledge and embrace our anima or animus, we develop more balanced relationships and a richer inner life. Another fundamental archetype is the shadow. The shadow is everything you don't accept in yourself, everything the world taught you to reject, to hide, to silence. Selfishness, fear, anger, envy, repressed sexuality, the ambition you pretend you don't have. You bury all of this to appear good, strong, admirable. But what is repressed doesn't disappear. It returns in the form of resentment, self-sabotage, judgment, or emotional outbursts. The shadow is like an animal locked in the basement. Ignoring it weakens you. Looking at it consciously sets you free. And more, the shadow doesn't only contain what's bad. Often, it holds your potential, what you were taught you weren't allowed to be. When you welcome your shadow, you recover parts of yourself that were frozen. You become more whole, more human. Archetypes, then, are not just abstract ideas. They are mental models that have repeated for thousands of years. They are recurring ways of seeing the world, feeling the world, and living in the world. They are psychic structures that shape our experiences before we are even aware of them. You might be living out an archetype without realizing it. Maybe you're playing the role of the hero, always trying to prove your worth, or the victim, always waiting to be rescued, or the rebel, destroying everything, even what you love, or the wounded healer helping others, but never healing yourself. And not just that, archetypes also manifest in your deepest dreams, goals, and life purpose. When you feel a deep calling, something that's not just ambition, but a necessity to live something greater, that is also an archetype moving within you. If you feel like you have a mission, a vocation, a calling, there is an archetype behind that. And the more consciousness you bring to that pattern, the more freedom you gain to choose your own path, rather than be dragged by it. It's the difference between unconsciously living a myth and consciously becoming the author of your own story. Now, a quick exercise. As the video continues, think. Which figure in your life, real or imagined, has deeply impacted you lately? It could be someone you admired, or someone who awakened anger, love, rejection. Think of them for a moment. Now ask yourself, what does this figure mirror in me? Do they reveal something I need to integrate? Am I seeing in them a part of myself that I haven't yet acknowledged? This simple act of mindful observation is already a step on the path of consciousness. And perhaps the most important one, Jung said that the human being is not just rational, he is mythological. We live deep narratives. We are moved by ancient symbols. And the more aware we are of this, the less we live as puppets, and the more we become authors of our own story. We are not what we would like to be. We are what we are capable of becoming once we stop ignoring what lives inside us. In the next episode, we'll explore the most feared archetype, the shadow, the part of you that you hide, but that never stopped following you. And if something in you awakened today, keep going, because to know your archetypes is to begin living with soul.